Welcome teachers tonight with Eli Michelson, Brian Voller, new guest, and Angie Potts. And the topic of tonight is gamification for education. But before jumping in, so Mr. Voller, Brian, welcome. And what's new going on in your world?
My world personally, we're wrapping up our 7th grade year in social studies, which is always a good time as we get closer to modern U.S. history. Also, kind of some big changes for me. I'll be transitioning over the summer to a school in Quito, Ecuador, and I'll be teaching high school economics next year, which I'm really excited for. I'd started my career with that at first at Edina, and I really enjoyed it. And so this is going to give me a chance to get some new experience, as well as kind of go back to teaching a topic that I was really passionate about. So yeah, it's a big summer coming up for me. I'm really excited.
Coolness. Angie, how about St. Peter?
The year's winding down. We are working on some big projects in each grade. I'm trying a new one in 6th grade. Literally, the idea came from talking to kids while we were 6th grade students while we were sitting under a table. We were doing some masking tape stuff on the floor, and that was the only place we had left on the floor that we could put masking tape. And they're like, "Oh, I want to build a fort. That's so much fun." So I said, well, let's do that. How about our last project, we build a fort that has to withstand different size objects being thrown at different distances, and your fort has to be able to withstand the forces of these different objects. So we're going to see how that turns out. I originally had them maybe building a machine to launch these objects, but I want all 6th graders to live, so we're not going to do that.
And Eli, done with apathy, so now...
Yeah, with my Enrich class, we're doing the book thief right now, and that involves a lot of collaborative work on Google Drive with those students. We're also reading A Step from Heaven in my standard language arts class, and after that, it's mystery for each class. We'll be writing a mystery paper and probably collaborating with science on that as well. And I got a document camera this week, which has been like world-changing. Like I can't believe I hadn't had one before. So I've used it pretty much every lesson of every day this week. So it's been fun.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Well, gamification. I don't use it as much as I'm sure all of you, but I had the chance to observe in Brian's class, and definitely you were running with it, and the portion I saw was definitely the kids were engaged, and I did not see how you were going to connect to the Cold War, but you definitely did. But tell us a little about it, because it was really, really cool lesson.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was kind of inspired that you were going to come in and watch, and trying something a little new. It's actually an economics game, or kind of a behavioral economics game theory. It's very famous as the prisoner's dilemma. And so basically what it is that students are given a role or a scenario where they are accused of a crime, and they have a partner in this crime. So we pair up students, and they have to decide one of two choices. One, do they confess and betray their partner, or do they stay silent? And then their partner has to make the same decision. And what we wind up with is a decision matrix that has 4 basic outcomes. If they both confess, or if they both stay silent, or if one confesses and the other doesn't, in both scenarios. And what happens is that the result for each one of those is different. So let's say they both stay silent, well, then they only get 1 year in prison. If they both confess, they both get 5 years in prison, and then if one confesses and the other stays silent, then the one that stays silent gets the entire sentence, maybe 10 years, let's say, and the other one gets 0. And so what we did in class was set it up where students had random draws for partners, and kind of counted down, and they were all over the room, big countdown, 1, 2, 3, and they'd flip, and they'd have a card, and that card would be either red for stay silent or black for betray. And they did this a couple times, and they got a chance to practice with their partner and see what they would respond with. And then we switched partners, and we kept kind of moving around. And the ultimate goal, of course, is to have the least amount of years served possible. And once we have the chance to play a little bit, and students get betrayed, and they have a chance to betray, there's a lot of competitive nature at the 7th grade level with these different scenarios. And so we did the game. It was a ton of fun. Kids are running around, and they're yelling, and they're jumping over desks, and they're throwing red cards, and it was chaos. But then they came back, and we had a great discussion about it, about the challenges of trust, about the challenges of not being able to communicate, of what it felt like to be betrayed, and then that just ruined the rest of the game for them. And these really great responses from 12-year-olds about the game. And then, like Dean said, well, we wanted to bring that back to the Cold War. So this game was kind of an introduction to what these two sides are feeling in the United States and the USSR about negotiating, about decisions to make regarding nuclear weapons, regarding new countries, and how it was so hard, or the default almost, is for both of them to backstab, because there's no trust, there's not the communication. And so we had a discussion about the arms race, and how both sides basically spent the next 20, 30 years spending billions of dollars on nuclear weapons instead of spending billions of dollars on roads and schools and hospitals, because they both defaulted to that both betray mode. So that was kind of our kickoff of the unit. And I thought it went really well. I mean, Dean and I talked about it afterwards, and thought the responses by the students were great, thought they had good insights about how to play the game. And then when we started talking about nuclear weapons, you could kind of see the look on their face as they kind of dawned on them. Because a question that a 7th grader will ask almost immediately is, why don't they just agree not to build weapons? Which is a great question, but with a hard answer. And so the game hopefully helped them get that understanding of, you've got these different dynamics going on, it's hard to communicate. And overall, I thought it was a great lesson. The kids really enjoyed it. And Dean and I got a chance to talk about it later. That's something I'll definitely do again, or try to work in more of that kind of an introduction as we go throughout the units.
It was really cool and to watch, and the 5 rounds, the first 3 rounds, it was so interesting because the students were, they stand with their story and just going to be good citizens, and then the betrayal started, and oh my gosh, and then that second time around, then there were a lot of people spending a lot of time in prison. Potts, how about you?
How about me? Well, I try to do it as much as possible. The biggest thing that we've done lately is actually a professional development piece. We had 2 early releases, one that were pretty close together because of a snow day that we had that was supposed to be an early release day. So they were within 2 weeks of one another. And so as a technology coach in our district, I presented some things. They wanted to do some instructional tech thing. So listening to I think it's Jane. You know her from all the Google stuff. You're like gaga over her. Her last name starts with an M, I think.
Oh, Jenny McGarrah.
Yeah, Jenny. So listen to her like on one of the podcasts I follow all the time, and then somebody else. I've been blanking on their name. And there's different ways to present professionally, and one of them was this idea of the play date. And so I was like, oh, we should totally do a gamified play date for instructional technology, because we have, I mean, just like in the classroom, but especially what I'm finding out is like adults in terms of technology use or understanding or comfort are across an entire spectrum. So it's like we could totally gamify this, but we'll do a play date. So it's not completely an unconference where you choose. So I had 6 options that they could choose to, and then I had gamification boards for them to go through each level. And then, like, one of the big things with gamification, and if you use boards within your classroom, is that at the end it all funnels to one main task. And so however students get there, or however teachers get there, they're all walking away with some knowledge. And so I'll see if I can do a screen share quickly of what we did. I'm missing my toolbar on the left. There we go.
Eli, I just requested that book there, the
Oh, yeah.
Reality is Broken book.
Yeah, I just.
Jane
Jane
McGonigal.
McGonigal?
Yeah, this
Yep.
one.
Yeah, sweet book. I saw her at Ties and I almost passed out. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in the same room as Jane McGonigal. Like, I literally was sweating, and I wasn't even close to her. Like, had no chance of meeting her. But I was like, oh my gosh, that's totally her. So that was my good book. I totally read it.
Totally, yeah. Yeah, Beth. I think Beth had lent this to me a while ago, and I have not given it back. So Beth, if you're watching this, I still have it back.
Well, Eli, if you want to give it to me, and I can give it to Beth at some point.
Yeah.
Nice, there you go. All right, let me know if you can't see this, because I have two screens going. Dean, you'll like my tech nerdy.
Yeah,
you see it?
We can see you nicely.
Can you see it now?
Oh, yes.
Yep.
Okay, so here's what I did. So one of the options was augmented reality. And so everybody got a chance to earn experience points, and then they could add to their superheroes. They were all superhero teachers. So after so many experience points, you could have like a cape. Eventually, you could add, like a sidekick. But what they did is, in each level, they had different options. I'm pointing to my screen, but you can't see me pointing. So, like, the first one's pretty simple. Like, what is it? Watch a video. Here's the QR code to do it. And then you had to share an aha moment so that I could track it, because then we're keeping track and we're earning badges as a staff. And then as they go, it gets a little more difficult with, at the end, they have these auras in their classroom for different things. You know, like, maybe there's 3 auras about classroom routines. Maybe you flip a math lesson or, some other sort of lesson, and it's all triggered by an aura that you've paired. So I made boards, and then also provided additional links and ways to submit stuff for 6 different groups, and then essentially they had an hour to go to 1 or 2 of these options and just play, and kind of ask an expert or go-to person in the room what there we're back what for help or assistance if needed. So kind of got some good feedback, and it's fun to see in the Google Docs to see information coming out, and it's been super helpful for me to then just say, hey, so and so in 4th grade is doing this super cool thing with Erasma or with Google Forms. Let's share this, talk about it, and get it out.
It looks really cool. I wonder if that's something that would fly in Edina to do a day like that, or to go with the staff. I think some would embrace it. I think others would have to slowly get there.
I had 3 women that are love Post-it notes and paper, and they went to the photography and videography one, and it was a couple apps like Telegami, Chatterpix, and different ways to think about it and use it in the classroom. And they made Telegamis and sent them. They figured out how to do it, because this was all paperless. So they figured out how to get the game board on their iPad. They figured out how to download the app. They figured out how to make one, and then how to email it to me. Except the entire Telegami was how much they missed paper, and if this was possible with paper, and what they could do with pencils. And then they supplied me with a stack of Post-it notes later that day. So it's not for everybody, I guess. Message received.
Eli, what about in LA World in 7th grade?
Yeah, I think at this point with the gamification, I think I am mostly just intrigued. I'm trying to think of anything that I've implemented at the moment, but nothing comes to mind that really. I like that Brian's idea very much of just kind of introducing something using a game. So I think that's something I'll explore in the future here. But yeah, I'm still kind of at the research stage, I think, with gamification. So yeah.
I really like back to yours, Bowler, how you we talked about it when we met afterwards, but the grid that you had with the four different scenarios, and then I believe you used exactly the same grid when you went to the Cold War connection, and it just seemed like the kids, just went right to that. And I don't know, did you tell them it was going to go to the Cold War, or what? How much did they know on the transition of that lesson?
It was our first day of the unit. They knew that that was going to be our next unit was on the Cold War, but as far as how the game tied into the two sides in the Cold War, especially with the terms that we used, like you said, I took the exact same matrix that I had made for them, same color, same template, same font and everything, and just changed, instead of the prisoners, made it NATO, which is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and then the Warsaw Pact, which was the Soviet bloc and the communist nations. And then instead of prison, I just changed the language to make it about nuclear weapons. So do you build or not build, basically, and then what are the consequences of that? So all of that was new. So the idea of the Warsaw Pact, NATO, so we walked through that a little bit. But I think that using the game, like Eli said, as the launch pad, the game itself, there's no content that they learned, but it was the challenge of the game and kind of the spirit of it, and then the lessons they took from that. That really made the payoff when we came to the Cold War and looking at the decisions that they had to make. Games for content, those are a lot easier, I think, with your skills classes. Like Angie, obviously in math. I mean, there are so many games you can play to build skills and do that in different ways. Whereas in the social studies, yeah, the history piece is a little bit tougher. Econ, that's one of the things I loved about econ is we would do games all the time, and we had market simulations, we had supply and demand simulations, we had all these things that you can get that buy-in. That's one of the things I love about middle school is that kids love playing games. I mean, they love trying things, and so to use that as a launching pad or to use it as a content piece anytime. Is just a most of the time.
Did you feel that, because I mean, this isn't the first time you've taught the Cold War, clearly, so did you feel that this kickoff, this launch pad, made the lesson and made the understanding go better, or how did it compare to years in the past?
Yeah, I did. I thought that it was a great way to introduce it because, as much as the Cold War is interesting to super nerds like myself, and I love talking about realpolitik, and who doesn't love talking about Nikita Khrushchev? Sometimes for a 12-year-old, it's hard to get some buy-in, but framing it like this in the game sense, and having them feel angry at a classmate who 2 seconds ago they were high-fiving because they both agreed to not say anything, and and then the next minute somebody's getting stabbed in the back, and they just get that reaction. Is a good way to kind of tie them in, or to get them at least invested or a little bit more engaged in international politics and treaty organizations. And that's really what I was going for. Like you said, I had taught it a couple years before and had not done this, so looking for a way to get more buy-in from the kids, and just anything that in 7th grade can connect their physical movements and their emotions and what they want to do with content is always going to be a win.
It was so interesting to sit in the back of the classroom because it was all the competition, and it was like, yeah, you got 15 and this and that. It was to win. And then when you made the transition into a much heavier subject, and I had never seen it from this perspective. And all of a sudden, their shoulders are up and they're going at it, and all of a sudden you could just see it was just like, oh, now it's real, and the topic is much heavier, and literally the whole row just kind of, the weight of a real life topic versus game. It was a different transition I hadn't anticipated. Yeah,
we talked about that a little bit, and I agree with you that the up and the energy, and then coming down, and then again taking those emotions that they just had in that game situation, the anger, the ups, the downs, this and this, and then coming into, oh, this actually happened between two countries, and nuclear war was this close to happening because of that. It's a scary thing, and they kind of talk about. And then, of course, at the end of class, we made sure to watch the infamous Bert the Turtle duck and cover video to make sure everybody felt safe when they left the room about how to protect themselves in case of a nuclear attack.
Nice. Way to bring it to full closure.
And for the record, and I shared this in our meeting, I did practice those drills. I think I did in 2nd grade, and I kept sitting there thinking, how is this going to help?
Yeah, no kidding.
Duck and cover.
At least we'll all be together, huddled in the underneath our desks and stuff. So.
That's right.
What I thought was interesting is we talked about it at our team, and I just said gamification, and I work. With I don't want to throw their names out there, I suppose, since I didn't ask, but they play a lot of interactive games, and they looked at me like, gamification, is that something we can do in school? And I'm just curious how do you define it, as if obviously users, but how do you define gamification? Anybody, jump in.
Well, I'll jump in because I have all my slides up from when I talked about it. Big difference between like games in education and gamification. Games, like you can play a game in your class and it's using games in the classroom. But gamification is kind of a philosophy piece within your classroom. So you have, usually like what Brian was saying, you have you have a story, a baseline, something that students are connected with, as simple as, in math class, calling them mathematicians for the day. So they have some sort of role, and then they have levels or ability to advance, and it's constant feedback. I'm going to show you this because it's a lot easier. And then you can jump in. This is my nerdy side. Like according to Jane, definitions of just games have 4 things. They have to have a goal, they have to have rules, they have to have a feedback system, and it's actually voluntary participation. And when she talked about it, it was really interesting because she's like, school is actually a super crappy game. Like, it's the worst game ever because goals are very different. They're not always clear. Rules are all over the place. And the feedback system is constant. Like, the minute the kids walk in the school, they're getting feedback from peers, they're getting feedback from teachers. Like, there's all this feedback bombarding them, and it's missing the voluntary participation piece. And I was like, holy cow, yeah, school kind of does stink when you put it that way. But to try to then, like, thinking about those pieces, knowing that those can be fuzzy, like, how do we clarify that for students, and how are we all on the same page so that school isn't a crappy game? But then, like, the 2 pieces, gamification is actually using elements of games in a non-game context, which is school. So having the ability for a narrative, a story, some control. Like, students need control, they need collaboration, and they need opportunities to continue their learning without being penalized, and continuing to show mastery. So, like, all the things we've talked about, or when I was there a long time ago in Edina, like the abilities to redo, the fact that you don't fail, you're just not there yet, sort of thing. It all fits into, so that's what makes gamification hard, is it's not a recipe and it's not a one-piece thing. That's what I found.
No, yeah, I agree 100%. I think that it's definitely, especially in the classroom, it's hard to use some of the philosophical pieces of gamification, like rewards. I mean, you can use that, but at the same time, you want to develop the other pieces of it, the intrinsic pieces.
Right.
Like you said, I think you mentioned like the idea of choice. and having mastery over their own things or control a little bit, or meaningful choice over their learning. But definitely having, I know the line between gamification and simulation gets blurred a little bit. But in the classroom, I do feel like we don't have the real world outcomes as often, and so we kind of have the simulated outcomes. What's like Dean, like you said, like, oh gosh, I got 20 years in prison because I'm terrible at this game. And well, okay, yes, in the context of the class, but still, how can you have that something that they can have choice with or meaningful gains from, whether that's emotional gain, or it could be physical gain, it could be all those different things, or it could be content, and I think that all those are valuable in lieu of or in place of money sometimes, or candy bars, or whatever it might be, which can be tough in the classroom.
Right. And when you look at simulations, like one of the other pieces, students are getting feedback all the time. And that's one of the huge pieces of gamification, is that quick and immediate feedback, and then the I know what's coming next, I know where it's going next, I know what to do next, which is a hard piece to get so timely in the classroom sometimes.
That's the hardest part I have, wrapping my head around it. And if I'm hearing you all right, and what I'm reading is, it's it's a contest, it's a choice, and then after they get the feedback, then they have a choice to go into whatever the next option is, and building those layers and those options of which direction it can go, and it can go in many different directions, and I still struggle with that.
The unpredictability of it, yeah.
Megan
Hasselbauer,
how you doing?
Good. Just got home. I'm here. Sorry I was late. Logarithms are tough for a couple of kids.
You've been doing logarithms all night?
Yeah, I don't know, like advanced algebra, whatever.
Sweet.
You're still not getting it, huh?
I'm having trouble. Logarithms are so hard. These inverse of exponentials.
Oh.
No, it's fine. We're good. I was gonna say the piece of the thing where you guys were talking about choices and like which way you guys were going as I was listening in here. One of the things that I tried, that I finally tried, that I've been talking about for so long, is doing like a hyperlink journey through mathematics. So what I did was I took all of the stuff that we do for the MCA, and I was like, you know what, we have such like a wide variety. We can do games online, we can do practice tests, we can do like paper packets, we can do all these different things. And so what I set up for students was like a giant like journey that they could take on, and it was kind of like a choose your own adventure studying for the MCAs. And then students got points for different things that they did in class, and then it was exempted from other things. So in the grade book, because I'm always thinking about like how this looks in the grade book kind of deal as well in the back of my head. And so what they could do is they could choose which way they wanted to go, which things they wanted to do, and then everything was connected, and this was the first year that I tried this, and it worked pretty well. I was kind of surprised on how some kids like took it and did like everything in the journey, quote unquote, or the game, and then some students did like hardly anything. So if I were to do this again, I would try to make some minimal requirements as to what they needed to do so that they wouldn't be totally lost on their MCAs these couple of days. But the cool part of it was that they kind of got to choose their own adventure. And so now that I've got this base set up where it was what I have set up this year, it's like one page connected to another page connected to another page. And then hopefully next year I can do some branches on that. And then if they got it, they can move to the next step. But if they didn't get it, they can go to this step and try it out. Kind of like how Google Forms have that branch technology. Like if you get it right, you go here. If you get it wrong, you go here. This is just a bigger scale of that, and it's all connected with hyperlinks, so through Google Documents. And so I only use Google Docs to create it and link things, but hopefully next year it'll grow a little bit bigger. And that's the biggest thing I think this takes, is you just got to start somewhere. Like it's like 6 documents that I link together to have them go through this, and then they could pick and choose different things on those pages. But hopefully I can make it so it's like next year I'll get 6 more pages on there, and then it'll change a little bit more and morph into something else. So I'm kind of excited about the prospect of it. It's just a matter of time, and every year it grows a little bit bigger.
Cool.
So.
Well, and it's definitely time, and then time. I mean, time to set up as any project, but then the flexibility and taking the time to tweak it and go with the direction of it's going, because there's a good chance it may not go exactly as a picture perfect lesson or the traditional lesson.
Like the first date, the first day that we did this, kids were like critiquing it like crazy. They were like, "Why can't I click on the back? How come I can't go to this page? How come I can't jump here?" And I was like, "Ah!" So I had like the Google Doc up as they were telling me these things, and I was like changing things as we were like live. It was awesome. It was that we were like, they were telling me like the feedback of how to make it better. And so that was, and every single class did it. Both of my my advanced kids and also my just regular 6th grade students. I hate saying that, but they both were awesome and like figuring it out and saying, "Hey, add this on and take this off, and this link is dead. This one doesn't work." And it was like, "Oh my gosh, okay, here we go." So it was they weren't afraid to point out all those wonderful things that I was trying to do for them. The nuggets. But it was pretty cool. So
Eli, we met someone this weekend, and I think, was she 7th or 8th grade, Sarah? 7th or 8th grade language arts, and she does gamification.
She's awesome
all the time.
Sarah Thomas, look her up. She's awesome.
Oh yeah, she is. She's pretty amazing.
What's her Twitter handle? I can't even think of it right now. I can look it up here in a second. But she was so much fun, and she had ideas for so many different ways to present things to kids. And then her whole idea of flip lessons were really interesting too. It wasn't just the content. And then she had a lot of like really fun rules. She was like, if it's longer than 10 minutes, turn yourself off. You're boring yourself. Yeah. So it was fun listening to her perspective teaching middle school language arts. And she was like, and she showed us a couple of videos. She was like, "Yeah, this is going to be the first of 5 videos on persuasive essays. Hang in there." She was really animated. But she kind of, also gave permission to everybody that was in there. She was like, you don't have to create it all the time. Use stuff that's out there, and then as you go through, like the time thing, like create it as you go, because it is, like research says, blah, 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 that you should have your own videos, but man, sometimes it's tough to make them.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, I'll share that with you if you...
Yeah.
It's and she just loves to share. And same thing. I mean, I don't know if you've heard of her, but I put it over on the side here. Sarah, teacher, but spelled.
Oh yeah.
And but
that's how you say that, Dean. Like
Twitter,
that's genetic.
Thousands of followers. She's like 13.2 thousand followers on Twitter.
Yeah,
she's
awesome.
She's over the top.
Cool.
Yeah, she's way cool.
And loves to share and loves to share and loves to share.
Oh.
That's why she has so many followers, I guess.
Yeah.
So Voller, I guess, and are we pushing the envelope here on you?
I'm sorry, what? I nodded off a little bit. Almost 9:10. Yeah, it's if I don't have that book open in bed in about 5 minutes, I don't know what's going to happen. I haven't been up this late probably since my bachelor party.
Well, since in DC, you were hanging out really late.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
So, any tip before we head out? I end with any tip that you did, or you can pass. No, Eli, you've had a chance just to. Yeah. We'll go Eli, and then Voller, you can think about it.
Yeah. No, I will. Thanks for sharing that resource. I'm going to check out her blog, and it's nice to have something a little more concrete to start kind of tweaking or maybe thinking about. So that's where I'm at right now. But I'll keep looking, and hopefully, if you have any ideas for how to use a document camera, I'm still looking to use that, all the time.
I'll come down and tell you something.
Yeah, come down and show me, because right now it's been great, but I want to do even more. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Voller.
I thought that that book, it looks great. The gamification books, I got requested on that, and I really like what Megan said about you got to build, and like we talked about before, taking a risk for a game. Sometimes you get a big win, like the one we had for the Cold War with the Prisoner's Dilemma, and sometimes they get a little messy, and that's just part of the process. And how do you figure out this? How do you still figure out to put the right rules or the right tweaks on it to make it do what you need it to do or you want it to do in the classroom, but still letting the kids have that fun and that freedom. Sometimes they're hits, and sometimes you gotta try something new.
Potts.
And when you try something new, take all the student feedback that's coming at you, like Megan said. So as they bombard you, like they're the ones we're doing it for. So yeah, as they have suggestions and ways to navigate things more clearly or understand it, definitely utilize those. And if you're good like Megan, do it on the spot, just like that.
There was some I didn't change on the spot, Angie. Come on now.
Just 2 minutes later.
There was like 3 minutes that passed. I don't know. It was a long time.
Megan.
I don't know, Dean. All good things. Good. Yep. Try things out. Try it out. And here's something that stuck with me from the conference that we were just at. When somebody said in their presentation, they said whenever something like a hiccup happened or something went wrong, they said they were watching the teacher, and instead of being like, oh my gosh, what's going on? It was like a celebration of learning that happened, because the teacher like stopped and they were like, we're gonna learn how to fix this, and it was like this great big deal that it was like so exciting that they could fix it, and like let's learn how to do it. And so it wasn't whenever something went wrong, whether it was with technology or a game or whatever you're trying to do, like they instead of being, oh my gosh, stressing out about it, it was like this exciting moment in the classroom when learning was happening and we're gonna figure this out together. So I thought that was pretty cool, just to kind of have that visual of when things don't go right, be like, oh, we're figuring this out. What a great deal.
Cool.
So I don't know, that was a cool thing that I will live today with.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I'll leave with what I heard, 2 quotes that I heard over the weekend that just really stuck with me by Ben Friesen with, teaching isn't my job, it's my passion. Getting better at it's my job. And I just really like that. And then Rushton Hurley, is it? Rushton Hurley?
Really, yeah.
The only you need. Too. Oh, he's amazing. The only you need to compare yourself to is the you were yesterday. I thought, wow, that's pretty deep.
So Dean pretty much took the keynote speakers like quotes of the quotes.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
I've never had an original thought, so I'm gonna steal them all.
Sorry, only Angie's and Brian's are original. I think every else will.
Okay, well, Voller, thanks. I just feel so honored that you crossed this digital social media line for this tonight.
Brian, I know that I just got in here, but I heard that you created your Google Plus account for this hangout.
Today. Today.
Look at this.
And you're hanging out in your pajamas.
Pretty exciting.
Thanks.
Thanks all, and we'll do this again. And next year, Voller, now that you're in, this is going to be connecting to Ecuador also.
Global.
And they don't do daylight savings, so we'll actually be on the same time frame for about half the year, the same time zone.
All right.
All
So
right. Thank you all.
7 p.m. 7 p.m. We'll do that.
Okay. Good night.
All right. Thanks, guys. Good night.
Good night.